WP-Get Web Dev tutorials for all user levels. Alright guys, so in this video I wanted to talk about the component variations feature in Figma. It is absolutely brilliant. So if I look at these buttons here, for example, each one of these buttons is an individual component, and the dotted line around that shows that it is a single variation group. So I'm going to show you exactly what that means and what I'm doing with this and how this works. So if we look over here, I've got, now this is just the beginning for me, by the way. So I've got some variations here. So I made some just default basic cards, 1/3 width cards here with left, center and right alignment, half width and full width, same thing. And then I've got my secondary variation on those. I've got some sections here that I've created, very simple boxed sections with an image on the left, copy on the right, vice versa. Now these have got my primary background, these have got my secondary background, and these have got my primary variation background. Okay, so I've got a few heroes over here which I haven't grouped those as yet, but let's see how we use these and how cool this is for productivity. Now I've talked about this in another video, so I've got a couple of things here which I'm going to use as well. So I'm going to just show you where the productivity comes in here. So if I hit the plus on pages, just create a new page, all right, and I hit my frame and I just want a desktop, zoom in a bit on that, make it a bit bigger. Okay, and I'm going to set my grid layout to the desktop layout, which is a grid I created. I showed that in the previous video. So now I've got a 12 column grid that's 1140 wide. The page is 1440 wide, and I've got 24 pixel gap between these, and I've got an 8 pixel vertical grid here for snapping. Okay, so that's my desktop template set up, ready to go. I'm going to change the background on this because our background using the 60-30-10 rule, my primary color is my background color because that's the most dominant one that's going to come through. All right, so that is ready for me to start mocking up. So the first thing I want to do is go to my assets and I'll look for a hero. Now I haven't grouped these yet, so I'll show you the difference between that. I want to look for hero. You can do it. Okay, so I've got 4 heroes that I've created. Now this is showing up as 4 separate components because I have not grouped them. So I'm going to grab one of these heroes. I'm just going to drag it onto the screen, just set it to the top. I have to zoom in a little bit so I can get some better control. There we go. The basic hero. Here's my first hero. Okay. I'm also going to grab under my assets, I'm going to go to the hero. I'm going to grab my guides. I've got 2 guides. For some reason, Figma's playing up here. Go back to my page 2. Assets. There we go. It's showing them now. So I've got these 2 guides here. Is my color guide. So that's my 60-30-10 color guide and some spaces. Okay, so I've just created a bunch of spaces. Again, I'll go through this in another video, which give me my box sizes that I want to use for spacing. Now I'm defaulting to a 64 pixel vertical spacing for these layouts. So I'm going to just copy one of those and I'm going to stick that at the bottom of this. All that does is it's just easier than counting these 8 pixel easier than counting these 8 pixel vertical lines. And you can now get, say for example, I want to put some text in there, so I'll put a page title, text, and I'm going to make that my extra large bold. I'm going to make it the color is the default heading on primary. And I'm going to center align that, and I'm just going to align that to the top of that there, roughly, for this, because we've got some box sizing around this, so I just want that the top of the descender lining up with those 64 pixels there. All right, now getting to the component grouping side of things. So I want a section now. I can just go into my assets and search for a section. Okay, got a couple here, but that's the one I want to do. Is I've got to get rid of this other one. That's a dummy mock-up thing I've got at the moment. So my first one here is my group. So I'm just going to grab that and drag it down. We'll drag this into place. Now with my, there you go. With my sections I've created, you can see I've already got my 64 pixel spacing at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to make sure that lines up properly with the bottom of that. There we go. And there is a section. Now, let's say that's okay. We want that to be our primary section. If we look at this, we've got some properties on the right-hand side, which is our grouped variations. So it's my primary, so my primary background, it's boxed, 2-column with a left image. If I decide I want that to be a right image, I just change that to right image, and it's going to change the template it uses. So I'm going to drag this copy of that down to the next row. I want directly under it because I've already got the spacing in my section. And on that one, I'm going to tell it I want that to be the primary variation, and I want the image to be on the left. Things are going very slow for some reason at the moment. So I'm going to hide my grid. Just going to extend this page a little bit. You can see more. And see there already we've got a section with a primary background and right aligned image. And then we've got a section with a primary variation background with a left aligned image. And let's say we now want another one. So I grab that whole section, copy that section, snaps to the bottom of that, and I'm going to change that to my secondary. And that's got the image on the left. Let's say we want that to be on the right. Now get rid of my grid. And we're starting on our wireframe mock-ups right here. Okay? Pretty straightforward, right? Let's say I want to put a button under all this, somewhere on the page. This isn't going to be a good example because I'm just going to chuck a very basic button on here. So if I put B-U-T-T, there's my buttons. So I've got a rounded button and a standard button. So let's pick my rounded button. I'm going to drag that down to here. By default, it is my small. So I'm going to change that to be my large. My browser seems to be going very, very slow for some reason. I'm not sure why. This is a test button. Okay, we're going to select the button, tell it to center it, grab a spacer, stick that there and line my button to it. Okay, so there's a button. Give yourself some more space to work with here. Oh, that seemed to ruin that. Anyway, now let's say we just want to put a couple of cards under that and we want to use the 64 to drag something incorrectly then. Get used to using the buttons. If you go too quickly, all these keyboard shortcuts, it can get a little bit tricky. Now, something here, see that button's okay, but you can see that's on the bottom line. Sometimes because we've got different line heights, different paddings here, these don't line up exactly with one of these vertical lines, which is okay. In this case it does, so I'm going to line it up. But sometimes if it's sort of halfway down there, I just go to the next line. Again, this is mock-up stuff, so you can tidy it up in your page builder. It's not going to really be noticeable here. Right, so now let's say we want to add some cards. cards. Okay, here's my group component for cards. So I grab that, stick it on the page, line it up, left and top, and there's my basic card. Okay, so it's got the primary background, so I can't see that. So again, it's a grouped or a variation component. So I grab that, and I'll tell it I want it to be half width. And I want to use my secondary card as the background. Grab a copy of that, drag it across. I've now got two of those. Alright, so let's say we want to make two more of those. We can grab both of those, we can drag them down, and by default with Figma you can see these numbers changing. I can go to 24, 21, 24, that's okay there. But if I was struggling with it, I can just grab one of these 24 boxes here and use that as my guide. Let's say, for example, this third card here, or the fourth card I should say, let's say we want that to be our primary card, not the secondary. And it's as simple as doing that. Turn the grid off. Now we've got a very quick wireframe setup using variation components. Now, once you're happy with these, you can do a couple of things. You can go back and you can change these globally. So if I select that, for example, and I go to, there we go. So that little component button, let's go back to that. If I go back to my page and select, say, this section at the top here, which is my primary with the image on the right, and you click on the little component icon at the top, and it takes you to the actual component. If I go into that component, let's say we want to have rounded top left, so make that say 25, and the bottom will make that 25. No, that looks terrible. So what we've done is made a rounded top and bottom, right? If I go back to my page 2, you can see my component has updated. So the really cool thing is you basically wireframe this out. You then go into the actual components and you set them to exactly what you want, and they will change everywhere that you've used them, and it keeps everything really consistent. Now you do have the option where if on this top section here you decide, look, actually you want this one to be different to everything else, you can right click on it and detach the instance. It's now not connected to that component, and if you look over in your left hand bar here, it's actually a frame with all these individual parts. So you can change all of these. You might decide, in this case, I want that text to be centered, I want the button to be somewhere in the middle here, I want this to be centered, whatever you want it to do. And that is detached from the primary component, so this will be an individual instance. I wouldn't recommend it. You want to try and keep consistency by placing everything on the screen and updating your global components. So that's a lot to go through. I would suggest you look at the variable components and how you can create your own set of templates. And I've only just started on this. I've only really feel like I've only got a little bit done here. So I've got some buttons, I've got some cards, I've got some sections. I want to create some more of those. I need to create some footers, testimonial blocks, a few other bits and pieces that you commonly use. So that all I have to do is search for that, select the variation, and then my model is done. So hopefully that's something that will inspire you to use this to increase your productivity. And if you like this kind of thing, let me know.